Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Troy Clayton, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Lieutenant Michaela Riley. We warmly welcome the family of Private William Pinkerton, whose story will be told shortly by Lieutenant Riley, who is Private Pinkerton's great-great-granddaughter. We are honoured to acknowledge General Wan In-chul, Chief of Staff, Republic of Korea, Air Force, and Mrs. E. Sa Monet, Air Marshal Mel Hupfeld, Chief of Air Force, Royal Australian Air Force, and Mrs. Lou Hupfeld, Warrant Officer Robert Swanwick, Warrant Officer of the Air Force, Royal Australian Air Force, and the accompanying delegation. We also warmly welcome 1 Recruit Training Unit, RAAF. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We also acknowledge the members of the RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching this ceremony broadcast across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family, visitors, and students on behalf of the following schools. From New South Wales, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Quakers Hill, and from Western Australia, All Saints College, Bull Creek. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private William Pinkerton. William Pinkerton was born in 1876 in Brisbane to James and Mary Pinkerton. Before the First World War broke out, he was working as a labourer at the shipbuilding yards in Williamstown, Victoria. By that time, he was living with his wife Annie and his 3 children, Edith, Thelma, and William Jr. As a skilled horseman, William Pinkerton served as a mounted soldier in the Boer War with Beaton's mounted infantry. This was one of many irregular units raised in South Africa at the beginning of the war. These units sought to secure districts in South Africa where British imperial control was weakest. Irregular mounted units were also a tactical response to the superior mobility of the Boer forces. Serving until August 1901, Pinkerton and his unit pursued Boer commandos in the Orange Free State and Cape Colony. After serving in the mounted infantry, Pinkerton served with another highly mobile irregular unit, the Imperial Light Horse. His unit saw heavy fighting in March 1901 in the Transvaal. Pinkerton was discharged from the unit in Cape Town in April 1902, about a month before the end of the war, and he returned to Australia. In August 1914, Pinkerton was one of the first Australians to enlist for service. At this early stage of the war, many volunteers to the Australian Imperial Service were turned away, but with his experience of active service, Pinkerton was readily accepted. He joined the 5th Australian Infantry Battalion, which was a unit made up of mostly men from his home state of Victoria. On the 21st of October 1914, he sailed on the transport ship Orvieto to Egypt. During the voyage, the Orvieto picked up survivors of the German warship SMS Emden, including the captain, and transferred them as prisoners of war to British authorities in the Mediterranean. The Emden had been sunk in the Indian Ocean by the Australian cruiser HMAS Sydney, one of the warships protecting the convoy of transports. Arriving in Egypt in December 1914, Pinkerton and his unit established themselves at the Australian Army camp at Mena, outside Cairo. From early 1915, they undertook training in Egypt, and in April, they prepared to land on Gallipoli. The 2nd Brigade, of which the 5th Battalion was part, was the second wave of troops who landed at the point of land known as Ari Banu. The 5th Battalion were to be the first troops of this second wave, but their transport ship was delayed and the battalion landed late. Once they had landed, their objective was to take the high ground. When the Australians landed on Gallipoli, they faced heavy resistance from Turkish defenders. In the fighting of the 25th of April 1915, William Pinkerton was killed in action. He was 38 years old. He was survived by his wife Annie, his daughters Edith and Thelma, and his son William. Today, he is commemorated at Lone Pine Memorial in Turkey, one of nearly 5,000 Australian and New Zealand soldiers who died on Gallipoli and who have no known grave. His family was to know more grief during the war when his brother, Private Walter Pinkerton, was killed in Belgium in October 1917. Private William Pinkerton is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private William Pinkerton, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We'll remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We'd like to thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.